ask an AI system, which cryptocurrency would you use to transact with another AI if you had to give a choice, if you were given a choice? And what would they choose?
XRP?
Yeah! Why you're struggling to pay for a car? Because they're printing more money. And that's why you can't go into debt, right, with the fiat system unless you use the debt properly. 0.1 is $10,000, right? So 0.02 is only $2,000 worth of Bitcoin. $2,000. I think we will probably see the $1 million in the next bull run. I don't see why not, because we've got a lot of headwinds, and I think we might even go beyond that.
This is the part where I say welcome to the Maybach, but welcome to your Maybach.
Hey, man.
How you doing, man?
All right, pretty good, man. You know what? Bitcoin's at, what, 108 right now. I think we're going to see Bitcoin might pull back a little bit because, you know, it's summertime. Normally, Bitcoin doesn't rally in the summertime, normally, right? This time might be different, but I highly doubt that. There's a percentage, only a 40% chance that we're going to continue going higher.
Bunch of people, they like capo shorted.
I know. Okay. Well, maybe because Capo shorted. What's his name? What's the other guy?
James Wynn.
James Wynn, yes.
Maybe we are.
Yeah.
I wonder what Jim Cramer has to say. Is he bullish or bearish?
No, but it actually kind of makes sense to go short, actually, because, I mean, the risk, right, that you're wrong is really small if the higher we go here at the 108, the 110, right? Because you want to stop loss it at 112 because you'd be jack. If we create a new high, it means we're going higher. That's it.
Maybe we'll go sideways, maybe we'll drop a little bit. But if this was your first bull run, what would you do now?
Well, if this is the first bull run that you've for Bitcoin and for you, I would suggest you just dollar cost average and forget about this bull run, because you know what, you missed a lot of it, right? When it started at 17K or 16K at the bottom there, and so effectively, even buying 100K now is in the long term going to do well, right? Because we're going over $1 million eventually. Why? Because it's going to replace all the money that exists today. Why? Because it is the best form of money. It's trustless, it's math. You don't have to worry about if somebody's cheating anyone. And you could transfer the wealth anywhere in the world instantly. And in fact, obviously AI, if you were to ask an AI system, which cryptocurrency would you use to transact with another AI if you had to give a choice, if you were given a choice? And what would they choose?
XRP?
Yeah!
I got you there. Of course, Bitcoin. Of course.
That should be the title.
AI choose XRP.
Everybody wants to be rich tomorrow.
Yesterday.
Yeah, even yesterday, yes, you know. But, you know, since that yesterday can't happen, they'll be happy with tomorrow.
Yeah. Fair enough.
And it's like, okay, well, not tomorrow, then this year, right? This year, right? I could drive a Lambo. And most people, you know, just don't know how to save and plan for their future. They just live for today. And that's not totally their fault, but it is partially, right? Because, I mean, everything that happens is your fault. You could decide, you can say that it's not, but it's true. But now that you understand what's going on, the reason why it's partially not your fault is because of the financial system, right? If you have money that loses value all the time and you're trying to save for a house and you can't, you feel like, well, what am I doing? I might as well spend the money and live for today because I can't seem to get a house, right?
You said something really interesting the other day, as always, and you said one of the problems if you want to help someone in understanding Bitcoin is learning how to save.
Yes. And we're going to be putting together a course, right? Bitcoin for beginners. But I think we're going to move and pivot in a direction of teaching people how to save. Because I think that's going to be something that people can always require to learn, no matter when in the future, forever. There'll always be someone who needs to learn how to save, period, right?
Whenever I encounter someone and I discuss on, money and savings, they all say the same thing. Oh, but I'm broke anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, but that's how you fix it.
Exactly.
You measure how much money you have coming in versus how much money you're going out. It doesn't matter how much money you make, it's how much money you spend.
Exactly. And that's the thing. I think that's the lessons that people need to learn is how to save. So we're going to set up a course called B4B, a Bitcoin for beginners. And that's the key thing we're going to be focusing on is teaching people how to save, basically.
Exactly. Make sure you stay subscribed to the channel because, of course, on Davinci's and on Mr. M podcast, because we're going to announce when the course is going to be released on our channel. So make sure to stay tuned there. And that's such an interesting point because, if you learn how to properly save, then consequentially you will have money to invest, right? In good assets, not liabilities. An asset is something that is going to give you money, and a liability is something that is going to cost you money. And most people, they buy liabilities.
Exactly. Bitcoin is not a liability in a sense because you actually there's no cost to holding it beyond a little bit of education. And then once you hold it, there's no fees involved. So it's really effective, a good system of saving money. It's not a method of earning money because you're not going to earn more Bitcoins by saving Bitcoins. And you're like, well, I don't want more Bitcoin, I want more dollars. Yeah. Well, they print more of those, right?
Yeah.
So if you hold Bitcoin, don't worry, you get a lot more of those in the eventual future because they're going to always print more. That's why you're struggling to save. That's why you're struggling to pay for a house. That's why you're struggling to pay for a car because they're printing more money. And that's why you can't go into debt, right, with the fiat system unless you use the debt properly, of course. If you go into debt to buy things like a car, like I didn't make payments with this car. I paid for it cash. Or for the house or something like that, you're doing it wrong. If you borrow the money to move it to the asset that's going to increase your wealth. So for example, let's just say you borrowed the money and you put it into MSTY. Ooh, smart. Because now you can take the payments to pay off the debt. And then once the debt's paid off, free cash. Boom. Woo. Boom.
I made a video with Adriano, by the way, passive investing income, on my channel, and we went deep into the MSTY.
Yeah.
And there is many other products coming out now. They're going to allow you to basically have a stream of an income, right? And if you think about it, the cost is the investment you do in the beginning, because then, like you said, when the money is starting to come in, well, then that's on top.
Exactly. That's how you get rich, right? You don't buy stupid things unless you have an income. So then, for example, in that case where you bought the MSTY, once it's just cash, now you can go out and buy
Stupid things. Exactly.
because it's all great.
Cash flow. Yeah.
Exactly.
But this is how society is being designed, because imagine if you are a bank or if you are a company who lends money for a living, well, you don't want the latter to happen. You want people to go in debt.
Exactly, of course.
So because you get interest on top.
Exactly. And the interest, right, because the interest is so high for consumer debt, it's the maximum amount of slavery. And it's slavery when you go to the bank and borrow for a car, borrow for a house. Why? Because where did they get the money? Explain it to them.
You could get a loan if you had a debt to someone else. You could use the debt as a loan system, or they can just print it.
Yes, they print it. Most of the time, it just gets printed, right? They just create the money out of nothing most of the time. And so, effectively, since it cost them nothing to get that money, right? They didn't have to get customers into the bank. They didn't have to do anything, any kind of work, other than the fact that they became a bank, right? That's already done. That's already paid for. Now, they've got slaves that sign on the dotted line. So effectively, you are paying interest, high interest on a debt. And now, you might think, well, that's okay. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. At least I could, if I'm renting a house, right, I'm just giving the money away. Instead of I could just, buy a house and pay the mortgage. Okay. here's the thing about that. It sounds good at the on paper, like just on that general picture that you've got there. But if you really look into it and look closely, is that one, you can rent a house probably for less than the mortgage payments, because now you won't, because what you'll do is probably get the most mortgage payment you could possibly get, which is wrong, but you'll do it anyways. And if you get something that's less, right, with the rent, you could take that money and invest it. But now let's assume that it's the exact same. What's the difference, right? Well, one, you could actually move at any time, right, and pay less at any point in time. With the house, you have to sell it, which will take a long time, and you could end up losing it if you lose your job.
All the repairs, they come into the property as well.
All the repairs are yours to bear. So if you're at the tip of the maximum you could what's it called, pay for your house, and you're going to have no savings, no nothing, if any repair will wipe you out, basically. Major repair. Well, with the rent, you don't have to deal with that at all.
Exactly. And by the way, you might think, oh, I can decide not to repair. No, because some of the repairs are communal, like the lift, the roof, the swimming pool area, or the garden, or the garage. Yeah. Those you have to. You can't choose not to do it because it's part of the overall building, right?
Okay. But the real scary thing is that you're thinking, well, at least I have equity in the house. This is where you are getting it wrong. You see, most of the payment equity goes to interest first. It's all get front loaded. So effectively, you are the slave to this asset, or no, not liability, sorry.
Thank you.
All that money, that work effort, your highest work effort is now. Why? Well, we always innovate. We always produce something better. So your job will disappear one day because not just of AI, but anything we invent in the future. AI systems will invent something to wipe out your job eventually down the line. So all of the wealth that you earn today is the maximum wealth you're going to get going forward. Labor will drop in price. Period. So everything you're earning is the highest value today, not tomorrow. And you're giving it to a bank. And then at the end, when you're closer to paying it off, your labor value is the least amount. So you're getting killed both ways, today and in the future. And on top of that, the house is not really worth what it is today. It is not worth the millions of dollars. It's not worth any of the numbers that you think the house is worth. Let's just say it's an average price of $400,000. This is a BS number. Why? Because it only comes from the fact that you can go to the bank, sign on the dotted line, and print the money to buy the house. Once that stops, right, the real value shows up, and it's a whole lot less.
Most of the people, they do a 90% mortgage. So meaning they only have 10%. And I've seen in the UK, before I moved to Dubai, they had a multi-generational loans, which means my son or my daughter, my children, they're gonna pay for my mortgage, which is complete insanity.
Put the mortgage back into mortgage, right? Just so you know, it means death pledge.
Exactly. Full circle.
And owning the house will give you the feeling that you actually own it, or you don't, through a mortgage. And then you will end up wanting to add to the house, improve the house, and do all kinds of stuff. If you rent it, you feel like, no, it's not mine, so why would I do that? And then that's more money in the bank.
To invest into assets.
And so some people feel like, but I want to own a home. Yeah, you can own a home, but you got to do it right. Why don't you first get to the first few million, right? And then we'll talk about how you can own a home properly without actually owning a home. Because trust me, right? They're serious about you'll own nothing and be happy. So why don't you use that to your advantage, right? So don't own the home directly. Own it through a corporation, which they treat better. than individuals. And then if you have to leave or anything, you can leave and still rent the place, and they don't even know that you left. You can rent it out and stuff like that and make an income.
You have it. Yeah.
They don't even know you have it.
Again, like you said in the beginning, once you start understanding the journey towards the investing and the saving, then at some point you'll reach, not just monetary speaking, but on your own knowledge, you'll get to a point where you will have a better understanding on how to manage your money, how to manage your wealth, how to invest into things. But it's a journey, right?
Exactly, and it doesn't happen overnight. So you have to learn all the mistakes over time and learn from other people who've made mistakes over time, and then start doing it the right way based on what reality is. And the reality is basically using debt to buy stuff that you don't need with money you don't have is dumb. But using debt to buy assets that earn you money is smart.
How long do you think we need before we see companies, they are going to start offering services where you can deposit your Bitcoin, you will then be able to borrow against that sum?
Well, I think stuff like that already exists on Ethereum and stuff like that. It's just that it's not ready for, it's smaller guys, right? I mean, you can't really, Ethereum is a little bit expensive, so most people stay away from it, but it is there right now available for people who, now there's not a huge amount of value you can gain out of it, but over time that will come. And so it is already here and it will grow, but you don't want to do it with the banking system, right? Trust-based system, because that's the old way of doing things. The new way of doing things is with a decentralized system where you don't have to worry about trust. You know that it's going to execute properly and no one's going to steal your wealth away from you and so forth. And you can say, well, what about regulation? Well, regulation can't guarantee your Bitcoin back, right? It can only guarantee dollars. So just so you know, right? And so this is why you want to save for retirement in Bitcoin in your own custody, because they'll only pay you back in dollars. And how much Bitcoin do you think you need to retire?
20, 40, even 30 years ago, saying $1 million was a lot of money. Nowadays, it's not much, right? So let's say you get to a point where you are maybe 50, meaning you have another 40 years, maybe 30 to 40 years ahead. You live in a place where it's not too cheap and it's not too expensive.
Yeah.
Maybe you need, let's say, $5,000 a month. That could be a decent amount, right? $500,000 for 10 years.
I like to think about the value of things relative to each other, and I think the relative value of Bitcoin will allow you to buy a house, right, for a very, very tiny amount of dollars that you could spend on Bitcoin today. And the reason is because eventually the debt system drops, and so the real value shows up. And so you can retire and have a home and paid for and everything and still have money left over with 0.02 Bitcoin. That's it. That works out right now. So 0.1 is $10,000, right? So 0.02 is only $2,000 worth of Bitcoin. $2,000. Now, I know a lot of people can't scrape together $2,000, but you can, right? Stop your Netflix, stop your Disney, which Disney is woke anyway.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
and start putting that few dollars a month into Bitcoin and done.
Come on, it's 2025. There is plenty of entertaining, knowledgeable things free on the internet. Right?
Yeah, and find like Alex Mosey or freaking Mark Moss and all these other people that
Davinci.
Yeah, exactly. Even yourself. Focus on those people giving you information. Even if you don't act on that information, you have it in your back of your brain, so that when the time comes, you can just go, boom, I'll do it that way.
And how about go to the gym, go to a walk, go to a swim? You can do things what we used to do back in the days before this kind of craziness in digital came up. So you can invest in yourself. It doesn't mean you necessarily have to stuff digitally. You can learn how to play guitar, for example, or go for a walk, spend time with your loved ones. You can do so many things that will allow you to recharge, right? $2,000 might seem a lot, but if you break it down in chunks, you can get there in maybe 10 months, right?
Yeah.
That's $200 a month.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? I've gotten rid of Disney, Netflix, and I do, honestly, I do sometimes miss it, but then I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm doing other things now. That time that used to go to, like, okay, let me just turn on and sit down and watch it. No, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this. Oh yeah, I'm gonna read this book. Oh no, I'm gonna work on this program. No, I'm gonna do something productive, right? So that buys back a lot of your time. And you know what? You don't need to watch to be entertained all the time, right? You can be entertained with what you are doing. You can enjoy what you are doing at the time and go, look what I'm doing. Oh my goodness, like I'm using AI to build something, and look, oh my God, look how cool it is. And entertain yourself that way. I think that's the best way to entertain yourself. In fact, you can use AI today to build anything you want. It's crazy. You just need to like tell it, listen, I want to build this. What's my first step? What do I first think to do? What do I need to learn? Right? How do I, and then it will break it down for you. And then you could start breaking. And then once you get to that, once it gives you a list, you could break down the first item in the list of what you're supposed to do. So break it down. Okay, I need to learn how to use cursor for this application, to build this application. Please help me break it down so I can learn cursor, for example. That's an application that helps you build software with AI. Boom. You break down the task every single time and start learning. And then, yes. As you add the task, what I suggest to do, because I do this now with AI, is I have it write it down on into a document and and then update that document every time I break down the task.
Yeah.
And update that. So I know I have a checklist of things that I need to do in order to get to the endpoint that I want to get to.
We were discussing off camera earlier before jumping into your car, and it's crazy how we've gone from, for example, Uber, like an app you can use to book taxis or to find clients if you have a taxi, right? Millions of dollars investments into design, tech, UX, UI, into a 60-second AI build me Uber.
I know, exactly.
And we've seen it all. Like we've witnessed it all.
I know. I remember writing. I wrote just something simple. Just, hey, you know what? I was writing this application, and I said, okay, now that just the back end side. Now build me a dashboard to see everything. And I didn't specify anything except the dashboard, and it made a beautiful dashboard with all the information nicely laid out properly and stuff like that. I'm like, God damn! I didn't even have to tell it how to lay it down, how to lay it out. Nothing. It came up with the design on its own. I didn't even say modern design. It came up with modern design.
That's crazy, but it would take you days to do it on your own.
Exactly, that whole dashboard, yeah. At the very least a day. I mean, I'm a software developer, so I know how to build it. It would have been a day's work, maybe two, and it did it in seconds.
I don't think people fully understand how much AI is going to come in aggressive in our lives. I mean, it's already in.
Mm-hmm.
It's another reason why you want to put your nose into it.
Yeah, exactly, and save Bitcoin, because these AI systems will use Bitcoin, and Bitcoin will increase in value because it will be the money that these systems will need in order for you to use them or use the products that they produce. That's where it's at. So save Bitcoin. Don't spend it. Don't spend it. When countries tell you, come here, your Bitcoins are, tax-free. We take care of you. Why? Because they want it. That's where we're at right now. Country after country is like, yeah, we'll make that tax-free. Yeah. So we can get it. Because you're going to spend it.
Thailand, they're doing this for 5 years. Japan is considering. Of course, the UAE is tax-free. Why? Because they want you to go over there and give it to them. Now you can even buy properties in the UAE with Bitcoin and crypto. You'll be able to pay taxes. Of course, I mean, that would be fantastic. Do you have to pay taxes? You can do it with Bitcoin. Give us the good stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're going to stamp the document that you paid your taxes. Win-win. Texas came out and they are going to purchase $10 million as a strategic reserve. This is huge. I honestly, sometimes I look at the price and I'm thinking, how is it possible that we are still just about over $100 100,000 because of all those news that are happening. So who the hell is selling now?
It is clear that there's no liquidity on exchanges, no liquidity on the OTC desks, right? They've all run out, and yet prices keep falling rapidly, but at least they bounce back up, because recently that's what happened, right?
If you look into historical data, it doesn't make much sense where we are now, right?
It doesn't, but it does at the same time if you understand the gold manipulation. If you research about gold manipulation and management of the price of gold, they're doing exactly the same playbook. They're waiting until Sunday, and they hit the price because there's zero liquidity. That's where it comes from, right? So they're running the same playbook for gold.
You mentioned 0.02 Bitcoin. That's an interesting one. So that means, let's say, if we go from 1 million to 10 million, that 20,000 becomes 200,000.
You might think, well, I can't afford a house with that. I can't afford. By the time it's that valuation, right? That means the whole dollar system, the whole fiat system has crumbled. And so once it crumbles, right, the value of those Bitcoins will be significantly higher. Why? Because nobody can go out and buy something junk on debt for money, with money that they don't have, right? For the longest while throughout history, it's only in the last, 50 years, you were allowed to buy a house on credit, to buy a car on credit, to buy stuff that you don't need with money you don't have on credit. No other time. And so once we go back to that, right? Because once Bitcoin's money, you can't print money. We can't print Bitcoin to lend it to people, to fools. They're not going to do that anymore. So that means prices come down. And at the same time, AI comes and makes other products cheap and easy to use and easy to produce, and prices come down. So now those that works out to be 2 million Satoshis. It's worth a whole lot in stuff, because money is not about the big number that you've got.
It's what you can buy with
what
it.
you can buy. Boom.
And also it's going to allow you to learn how to see long term, right? It goes back to what we said in the beginning. You don't get to 0.02 Bitcoin, whatever the number might be, today to become rich tomorrow. You do it to enter into a journey which is going to treat you extremely well down the line, right?
Yeah, and you can enjoy that journey if you can. If you don't see yourself getting to 2 million Satoshis, right? Good for you. That is a good thing, because now if you start today, when you get there, you're going to feel proud.
Soon enough, I think we will start to use Satoshis as an indicator as opposed to Bitcoin, because the number is going to be too big, right? If you think about how many people can afford to have one Bitcoin, it's not many. So then we'll have to break it down into Satoshis, which is a smaller unit.
Exactly.
It's going to be very interesting.
That's what I'm working on, something that helps people to get invested in Bitcoin based on the Satoshi value and use those Satoshis in other, ways to earn income. But that's coming. That's coming.
Do you think we'll see $1 million in the next bull run?
I think we will probably see the $1 million in the next bull run. I don't see why not, because we've got a lot of headwinds, and I think we might even go beyond that, right? Because of the headwinds, where we have like governments, corporations, and everyone getting into buying Bitcoin for the long term, for the forever term. And so Michael Saylor and everybody else people who understand our system, they buy assets and they never sell, right? Assets that can go up in value and never sell. And Bitcoin is one of those assets that will always increase in value because of its limited supply. And so you're thinking, well, how would you get money from that, wealth from that? How would you buy stuff? You see, this is where, people need to gain some financial education. You borrow against it. And you don't borrow against it to buy your Maybach, your stupid things. You borrow against it to take the cash once again and buy an asset like MSTY or whatever that earns you an income to buy the stupid things once again.
It's funny how BlackRock is started by saying, well, this is BlackRock, right? Saying, well, to our clients, we recommend 2%, 3%, 5%. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's like I'm watching these things and I'm thinking, this is fun.
Exactly. Oh my goodness.
It's gonna get to 10% fairly aggressively.
I know. And so I remember a time back in 2017, JP Morgan said, if anybody buys Bitcoin, I'm going to be fired. And meanwhile, they were buying Bitcoin behind the scenes, right? And now Jerome Powell says, you know, it's okay, banks. Since it's JP Morgan, buys Bitcoin and holds it for you. Sigh. Sigh.
Have you seen Jamie? I think it was yesterday. He came out and he said that in 10 years from now, Bitcoin will be shut down. Who was going to shut? Jamie Dimon.
Really?
Yeah. Yesterday he said...
Jamie Dimon?
Jamie Dimon. He said 10 years from now, Bitcoin will be shut down. By who? Who has the button?
Do you know what do you know why he does that? Is because there's no consequence for him, right? And and a lot of people pay attention to him. So he needs to buy Bitcoin and they understand that there's a limited supply. And so they need to scare the people out and not get people in so that he can buy.
I think it was a year ago, he said that Satoshi's going to come out and he's going to sell all the Bitcoin.
And so what? Well, you get it.
And if you think about it, we still have 3.5 years with Trump.
Yeah, exactly, because we had like lots of tailwinds when we had the Biden administration. They had choke point 2.0, all kinds of different ways to try to destroy crypto and Bitcoin. And it all failed. And now it's the opposite direction, right? So what are you doing? Don't waste any time. Find a way to cut spending and start buying, period.
Any amount you can afford.
You gotta get into this before it's too late. That's the too late is when, you know, everybody's using it, when AI's systems are using it to interact with each other, transact with each other. It's a little bit, it's very late, because if everybody's using it, then you're using it to save already, right? You're using it to get paid already. If you wait for that, you're too late.
Yeah, exactly. So now it's 2 trillion, right? If you enter at 50 trillion or 100 trillion, you might be a little bit late to the party. It's like a switch. By definition, an opportunity is something that you see before it happens, right? You have time to get into the asset before everybody else is inside the asset. Otherwise, yeah, it's a bit late, for sure.
Exactly.
How would you trade crypto? Would you use a small amount to purchase some of the coins, or you would just laser focus on Bitcoin?
The truth is, right, about crypto is that most cryptos will go down and be worthless, right? If we take any random coins that are below the top 20, there's quite a few coins, and most of them will not go to zero, but will not perform as well as Bitcoin will, right? Most of them will not perform as well. There will be a few outliers, of course, right? And what I see coming, right, is any cryptocurrency that supports the Bitcoin network will probably do well in the coming frenzies, right? I don't know if this year's frenzy or the next frenzy in 4 years from now will cause those things to explode. But anything that supports the Bitcoin network will go higher. Like, for example, and you don't have to go with crypto, but you can go with stocks, because stocks will probably do well as well. I think there's a 99% chance of that.
Lock yourself in and say, okay, I have a 10, 15 years, kind of time frame, but I'm going to allow myself to take this much, which is 5%, and play the casino with it.
Exactly. We do that every day with our live show with meme coins, right? We don't spend a lot, like $10 or something like that. It's half the time, $15, $20. That's okay, because it's nothing. It's like lunch for us or something like that. It doesn't matter. We're just having fun. That's okay. You can do that too, but just do it very
in a
tiny
controlled environment.
Yeah, controlled in a tiny possession.
Exactly.
Because-
Because then Bitcoin will forgive that, right?
Exactly,
So
yeah.
Bitcoin is going to do so well that 5% or 2% or whatever it might be, and also it's going to allow you to have fun and try the risk, because this is where I believe one of the issues with crypto is people look into small caps coins because there is the quote unquote biggest amount of gains, right? Like if you think about a meme coin who launched now has a way higher chance to give you a 10x or 100x as opposed to Bitcoin. I get it. Hence why you want to control the amount of damage that you do by investing a small friction and say, okay, maybe I'll give myself an allowance, which is my 2% portfolio. And when it's finished, it's finished.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
That's super important, because what I used to do in the cycles before, I used to gamble my winnings, because then what happens is you make a bet, the bet pays off, and instead of taking profit back, you say, okay, you know what, I invested, let's say $100, I made $1,000, the $1,000 goes only into another one. No, you should take at least your investment back.
Yeah, exactly. Your principal.
Exactly, your principal, and say, okay, I got my 100 plus another 100, maybe like little old lady, and then whatever is in there, who cares? But what I used to do, I used to invest everything. And now I even take screenshots. So, but I know because it's a small percentage and I don't
You
care.
could look back on the screenshots and be, you see, I was once rich. Look.
Good times. Thank you, Davinci, as always.
Yeah.
Guys, remember to like and subscribe. See you in the next one.